the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
The more regular you are with it, the smaller and shorter it can be because it's an ongoing conversation as opposed to a one-off.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
We are so glad you're listening to the Happy Families podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dr. Justin Coulson.
And I'm Kylie.
And today we're going to be answering one of the most commonly asked questions that we get about making your family happy. In fact, about making your relationship happier.
Okay, so we need to talk about today's topic because it's a question that we get asked time and time again. How do you get on the same page in parenting?
There's so much, what's the word? Discord? Like in couples where somebody's really dogmatic. This is how it's got to be done. And the other parent's saying, but what about? Or I don't like that. And the tension's horrible, right?
Well, and what I hear often is, you've come from two different homes. You've come from two different, totally different backgrounds, and you want to do it the way you were raised.
Yes, yeah. And we also kind of think that parenting should just come naturally. Like we just naturally open our mouth and say stuff to the kids, and that will be what our parenting is. I usually, when I'm asked this, talk about the regular Sunday meetings that you and I have. We call it a couples, call it whatever you want, a couples inventory, couples meeting, couples connection, a couples reset, the weekly planning meeting, whatever you want to call it. But a lot of people look at me strangely like, you really have a meeting every week to talk about your family? And I reckon this is an important thing to just bring up before we get into our major topic for today and how to address this question. We, at work, usually have to go through meetings at least on a weekly basis to get across everything that's supposed to be happening this week at work. And quite often we'll have like a scheduling meeting with our husband, wife, partner, spouse to talk about where are you going to be on this day? I need your help with this, that, and the other. And so that can all go into the planning meeting. But here's the thing. We make plans for our kids' educations. We make plans for our retirement. We make plans for our holidays. We make plans for our careers. We make plans for pretty much everything in our lives, house plans, whatever. And yet, if I have a conversation with somebody and say, what is the most important thing in your life? Most important, top of the list, everyone always says family. It's my family. And when I say, what's your plan for helping your family to thrive? What's your plan for being on the same page as your partner? What's your plan for alignment and working together? People look at me blankly. My what? And I think that if you want to get on the same page, you actually have to build a plan.
It's about setting your intentions and getting your priorities in order as a couple. So often as I talk with other women, what I hear time and time again is that partners take care of everything outside the home.
Oh, I hate this one.
And the mum is the one who takes care of everything else inside the home.
Sorry, I just sounded very judgy then, but that really gets under my skin.
And as a result, you're each carrying your own stresses. It's not a competition to see who's more stressed out.
But the big thing with that though is if I see you struggling inside, but I've done all my outside stuff, I've gone to work, I've earned the money, I've mowed the lawn, I've washed the car, as if I'm not going to get up and help you. But if that's where we're drawing the barriers, drawing the lines, then you're going to struggle and also feel guilty about asking me. It gets my goat.
But I think that often, in lots of cases, it's not actually a matter of somebody sitting on the couch just happily enjoying themselves. The reality is that often in our home, we're both actually juggling things. We're not.
Sure.
We're not watching the other struggle. But the challenge is sometimes, in order to make things run smoothly, we have to kind of look at where the priority is in that moment.
So every Sunday, you and I have a conversation. And the conversation takes about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. What's gone well this past week? What hasn't as a couple? What's gone well as a couple? What hasn't gone well as a couple? And what one thing and only one thing are we going to prioritize to improve how things go in our couple relationship this week? And that one conversation that we've had for the last however many years has changed the way we approach each week. It's improved the intention that we bring to how we interact together and with the kids.
And I will just point out that it only takes 15 minutes because we do it regularly.
Yes,
When we have long gaps, that 15-minute meeting turns into
an hour,
maybe an hour
2
and a half,
hours.
2 hours.
Yeah, true.
So the more regular you are with it, the smaller and shorter it can be because it's an ongoing conversation as opposed to a one-off.
Okay, so this past weekend, we have just done something that makes all the difference in our family. We used to do it all the time. It's gotten harder as our parents have aged and as we've lived not so close to them. But once every quarter. So in a business, you have a quarterly planning session, right? You get the team together and you say, here are our quarterly goals. Here's our quarterly focus. This is what we need to achieve over the next 3 months. Most businesses run on an annual goal basis, a quarterly goal basis, then a monthly goal basis. And we've been doing this in my Happy Families business for years. And several years ago, I thought, hang on, if I'm doing this for my business, I need to do it for my family. This weekend, we've just done a quarterly get together. You and I spent a couple of nights in Adelaide. I was there for a conference anyway, so you came with me. And we had a couple of days, couple of nights to talk seriously about what's going well, what's not going so well, and what do we want to work on for the next 12 weeks. And we are going to let you behind the curtain. We're going to tell you exactly what we talked about, the parenting expert, for his family in terms of how we can be on the same page and what we want to do to make things go better over the next 3 months.
So I think the first thing that's really important to acknowledge is that we actually ask the same 3 questions.
Yes, that's right. Every Sunday.
The only difference with a couple's getaway is that the things that we talk about more. For starters, there's more topics to talk about because we go deep.
And that's the real thing, isn't it? I mean, we might spend an hour on one topic and knowing that we've still got 8 other topics to talk about. And
this is the time where we actually create the space in our lives, which is really challenging.
Really?
But we actually create the space in our lives so that we can talk about all of the facets of family life instead of just dealing with the here and now.
So let's go behind the curtain. Let's unpack it and talk about what we discuss. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with daily habits because we've talked about James Clear and his Atomic Habits book a lot on the podcast, and this acknowledgement that those incremental, almost seemingly insignificant things we do on a day-to-day basis are actually what create the success of our lives.
Over the weekend, we really just talked about systems, right? What's our system going to be in the morning? What's our system going to be in the evenings? What's our system going to be on the weekends? Because when you get your system right, everything flows out of that. So this is where it gets tricky, right? Because I want to do my exercise in the morning, but I also want to do a little bit of reading and some personal growth. I have some spiritual practice that I want to follow, but you do too. And if I'm out on a long bike ride and you want to be down at the beach sitting on your rock and meditating or having that prayer time, and we've got children who are waking up but they don't have direction, that doesn't work. So we have to work out how we can not only get what we want but also support one another in getting me supporting you to get what you want and vice versa. It requires a whole lot of planning and a whole lot of thinking to get the priorities in order, to get the routine right, to create the system.
And the great thing about this is if you're doing it regularly, it's not like you're having to start from scratch. You're asking...
Although it felt like we started from scratch this weekend.
You're asking what's going well within your daily routine.
Yeah.
What's not going well and where do we need to tweak things? So we know the big rocks, we know the things that we want to put in there, but as family life changes, and as you would know,
changes every term.
Changes all the time.
Yeah.
And what worked last term doesn't necessarily work this term and vice versa. And so trying to kind of navigate that space can be really, really challenging. But that's why it's so good to be able to come together and have that conversation. Because otherwise what ends up happening is I'm usually the one who just kind of goes, you know what, it's all too hard. I'm just going to let go of my things. And then I start resenting you because you're going out and doing what you want to do, but I feel like I can't.
And this is about advocating for you. It's making sure that your needs are met. So let's get back to the agenda. We talked about our personal goals and habits and the systems that we needed to set up individually, but also as a couple, like our regular date nights and our family time and our family routine when we're spending high quality time with the kids, like Super Saturday.
We actually chunked out the calendar and worked out when our next getaway was going to be so that's already in there. We know that nothing else can interrupt that time.
The kids' activities was next on the list, and we're dealing a lot at the moment with kids who are having some struggles, needing some support, and don't feel like they're really pulling it together, like they're not feeling competent in the activities that they've chosen to do. So we've had to do a whole lot of work around how we can get the kids involved in activities, but also what our children's needs are. And that took like a whole day to talk about the kids.
Well, you've got 6 of them, right?
So many of them. That's right.
And what I love about that is the opportunity we actually have with space to pull it together and actually really spend time on each of the kids.
It feels
talk
so good.
about their strengths, talk about their weaknesses, talk about the struggles that they're having, but most importantly, how can we as their parents support them better?
So there's a handful of other things that we talked about. We won't dive deep on them, but just briefly, because we have a faith background, we talked about our religious practice and making sure that we're scheduling time in the calendar to do the things that matter for us there. We talked about our finances because, for goodness sakes, right now everyone needs to talk about their finances. What is going on in the world in terms of what it costs to live and so on.
We set some goals around the kinds of holidays and like family time we want to spend together.
In fact, we did more than that. We made a couple of bookings. So this is not just a time for us to talk about stuff. We take action. So we actually pulled the calendar out, worked out when the kids were on school holidays and made some decisions, called the holiday places and made the bookings. So we know where we're going to be at Easter next year. We know where we're going to be in winter next year. We know where we're going to be in the September, October holidays, the spring holidays next year. That's why we have these meetings, so that we can lock this stuff in. Even if it's just camping, it doesn't have to be expensive, but it's about getting the dates confirmed, getting in the diary and locking it in.
And the last thing we talked about was our social life. We love spending time with people. We really enjoy it. Our kids enjoy it. We enjoy it. And we love having people in our home. So we sat down and we looked at the calendar and worked out the weekends that you're around.
Yep. Who do we need to catch up with?
And who are the important people in our lives that we want to make sure that we connect with, share our love with, and enjoy time together.
And again, it's about action. So text messages were sent. Please come to our house on this date for dinner. We're really looking forward to catching up with you. And it feels so good to just lock it in the diary and know, okay, the next 3 months, our social life is, now there's still room in it, but we've got the really important stuff bedded down. We also talked about business and work because that's part of our lives and we've got to make sure that we're doing all that. Now, once the diary comes out and we've written this stuff down, we also make sure we allocate some time for fun. And we did have some fun while we were in Adelaide.
What are you looking at me like that for?
I'm just saying we had some fun because it can't all be business, okay? There needs to be some fun. That's how we get on the same page. Does it sound like it's a bit extra? Maybe. But I'll tell you what, and it doesn't always work out perfectly. I mean, we're going to get 2 weeks into the next 12 weeks and something's going to go wrong. The bottom will fall out.
But the great thing is we have a plan.
We have a plan.
And when things start to fall apart, we can go back to the plan.
Yes.
What are we missing?
And we get more accomplished and we stay more aligned because of that. It sets the intention and helps us to implement the stuff we've said we'll do.
And so when we come back together on a weekly basis,
we check in with the plan.
We've got the quarterly plan. It's there. It's our blueprint for what we are hoping to achieve in any given 12-week period.
We really hope that this helps you to create some alignment in your couple relationship. Hopefully, there's some ideas here to kickstart where you're up to, regardless of whether you're going to get away for a quarterly weekend or just start having the conversations to get alignment. It makes such a difference. Thanks for listening. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. If you would like more information about making your family happier, please check out my brand new book, The Parenting Revolution. And a quick reminder, tomorrow is our last day for the Smells Like Teen Spirit Summit early bird price. Prices go up on Thursday. So dive in. We would love to have you there for the best summit we have ever done and probably the last summit we'll ever do, the Smells Like Teen Spirit Summit, so you can have more Nirvana, less drama.